Today is the 19th day of Adar, the 19th of March. And so, we explained yesterday, we have to finish this inyan of what it means, Halbish Shamayim Kadrut.
What is that? I wasn't here yesterday.
Oh, right. So we had suddenly, he brought this holy name, which is Kel Adni, which together is 96. Kel is 31, Adni is 65, so together they're 96. And it says in the Gemara that the word that's 96, the simplest word is tzav.
Is sav?
Tzav, to command.
Oh, okay, sav, yeah.
So it says in the Gemara, I don't remember even in what issue, that tzav is related to Avodah Zarah. So it's not real Avodah Zarah, it's something like that. I know where it is. In the Sanhedrin, in Nun Zayin, Nun Che, when it talks about the Sheva Mitzvot Bnei Noach. So it says, Vayetzav Hashem Elokim al Adam Mikol Etz Hagan Achol Tochel. And so the Gemara there says that the first 6 Noachide commandments come out of that verse, and Vayetzav is Avodah Zarah. It says that's a prohibition against Avodah Zarah, is in the word Tzav. That's where it's from. Okay, anyway. So it says, what kind of Avodah Zarah is this? It's not the regular Avodah Zarah. It's not that the person is going to worship an idol. It's that the person feels that I made my success. He worships himself. He says that I am the cause of all my success. And that is, what that means is that there's a state in which Hashem's sustenance, everything He gives you, is suddenly enclosed in sackcloth. It's called Halbish Shamayim Kadrut. It's like it's in a state where you can't recognize it. So the person thinks that he did it.
You mean, is it in mourning, so to speak? You said
yeah,
sackcloth.
It's sort of like mourning. Yeah. The person's not himself. You can't tell who he is.
So who's enclosed?
So Hashem. Hashem is like wearing these clothing that you can't recognize it.
You can't get through. Okay.
Right. So he says from that place, the klipa can also take. That's considered to be a very, very low state. We talked about the hairs in the nukva's head, which is already limiting of the tremendous light from Hashem. So the klipa can take from there. But also, there's this state that in the natural world, people think that they're the ones who are working. They're the ones who are doing things.
And that feeds the klipa.
And that feeds the klipa also. Uviyot השפע נמשכת על ידי לבוש שק הנ"ל. It's called the sackcloth. שהוא לבוש שק המעלים. The full verse is, Halbish Shamayim Kadrut, I will make the heavens wear despondency or their darkness. ושק אשים כסותם, and I'll put sackcloth as their garment. So it's like Hashem is wearing sackcloth.
Is that a quote from somewhere?
From Isaiah 50, verse 3.
Yeah,
of course, it's a verse. ובהיות השפע נמשכת על ידי לבוש שק הנ"ל, הם מדקדקים בה כל כך, וגם החיצונים שהם יש, יוכלו לקבל יניקה. And so even those people and klipas that feel that they are something, they're significant, they're separate from Hashem, they're a separate being, so they can take from that sustenance, because Hashem Himself brings it down in that way. שהרי אמרנו ששפע זו נמשכת באלם גדול עד שיוכל לומר כוחי ועוצם ידי וכולו. ואם כן, גם כשמבחינת יש יוכלו לינוק, ומדרך זה יניקתם ביותר מיניקתם מאור המקיף. So now these two states in which their face is towards the pnimi, and what we see here is that they receive two ways. One is through the nukva, through the hair of the nukva. That needs to be discussed in and of itself. What does it mean exactly? But also, what it means is, we'll talk about later. And this thing that he just explained, which is that they also take, the klipa also takes directly from the sustenance that Hashem gives to the world, which is enclosed in sackcloth, and nobody can tell that it's Hashem, and they think it's themselves. So the klipa can also take from that, but more importantly, it takes much more than it does from the makif. Why? Because it's with its face to it. So here it has direction, it has focus, it has consciousness, it takes from it willingly. שאחור לבד למקיף, מה שאין כן דרך צמצומים אלו, הנה פניהם אל הפנימי. נמצא העולה מזה, so what do we learn from all this? And this is all, remember, this is all to explain our state in Egypt. What was our state when we were in Egypt? Why do we say that Pharaoh was at the back of the neck? Why is he sitting there? What's he doing there? Why are we enslaved in Egypt? All this is to explain that situation. נמצא עולה מזה, so the takeaway is, שיש שני אופנים ליניקת החיצונים. That there are two ways in which the klipa, in which the external forces take or suckle or suck, you would say suck, the energy from the holiness. The first one, האחד מבחינת המקיף, from the makif, from the circles, from the surrounding light. And the second, מבחינת קטנות וצמצום השפע, when there is a state of smallness. And so it's like either that there's a tzimtzum, there's a lessening of the light to the point where, like the nukva, there's only the little hair is what's left. That's as thin as it is, and from there they can take. Or when, so that's the first one. דיושר כשמצטמצם בכלים מכלים שונים, אז יונקים דרך שערות דנוקבה כנ"ל. זולתי מבחינה הממוצעת, דהיינו כאשר השפע מלובש בתוך הכלים, רק היא שם בבחינת גדלות. עדיין, והיא עצמיות היושר, אז אינן יכולים לקבל יניקה משם כלל. But if the sustenance of Hashem is in vessels, the vessels of Yosher, of the way Hashem planned the world to be, so from there they can't take, the klipa can't take. Okay, so now we're in chapter 2. ועל פי זה יובן עניין הגלות מצרים. So finally we're coming back to what was this state of being in exile in Egypt. שהיו עובדי כוכבים ומזלות מושלים על ישראל. How can it be that those who are idolaters, they rule over the Jewish people? This is a big kushya. This is a big question. This has to be asked. Like when they first came down to Egypt, they weren't in the state of being ruled by them. Although one might argue that they had to come down because they needed food, so in that respect they were being ruled. But it wasn't exactly that way, because Yosef was the one who had saved them. So it was really like that they were on top still. The children of Jacob were still on top. So how did it go from there and deteriorate into a state of being in exile?
After Joseph was niftar.
Yeah, after Levi was niftar, then the shiabud started. But before that, they were just in Gullahs. I mean, they were just living there. And they were living separately. You know, Goshen usually is associated, it's identified as Sinai, as the part of Sinai that's closest to the Nile. So it's the other side, not the Nile, but the closest to Africa.
The root cause or the what seems to be the cause. In other words, Rav Hirsch always said this is the first instance where Shibi was political anti-Semitism. Is that okay? But is that part?
It's all this. How can it be that we're dependent on them?
Okay.
If we have a direct connection to Hashem, how is it that we're dependent on the klipa? What's going on here? Why are we not receiving our sustenance directly from Hashem?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
The same thing is, by the way, today. Why is it that this is what's called the gullus of the Erev Rav? Which is a very big word, and people use it for all kinds of crazy things. And the Tanya says, you and I are Erev Rav. Why? Because we do things for our benefit. We don't do them to serve Hashem. He says in Igeret HaKodesh, in Yud Aleph, that any person who feels, every Jew who feels that he's doing something for his own benefit, it's terrible because he's among the Erev Rav now. So Erev Rav equals dat. It means that dat. It's a state of mind. It's not a lineage. It's not where your progeny is from. So in any case, but it's called the gullus of the Erev Rav. Like any state in which you have to receive from someone who is not serving Hashem is considered an exile. So how does that even happen?
When you say it's only a state, isn't it gam b'gam? Like always, like Amalek, there's gam b'gam, gam b'chutz, gam b'fnim. Wouldn't you say that they're above two?
So there's no such nations anymore. All the nations are gone. It could be that right in their generation there was still some semblance of a nation, and it was like many things in the past. They were physical.
In principle, it does, but today.
But for today, it's in Sancheriv, so we're talking about 2,500 years about. So now it's just opinions in the person's head, and again, we all have it inside. In any case, so how is this possible? So he says that really what happens here in the state of exile is that the 70 archangels or the ministering angels of all the nations, they receive sustenance more than we do. Why is that? How can that be? Because we're in a state of ibur. We're in a state of being we're in the womb, as it were. We're being fed by them. They're in a state of greatness, and we're in a state of smallness. So he says it's not that somehow they conquered you. It has nothing to do with that. It's that in some way we are not ready yet to be ourselves. We're not ready to take command. We're not ready to take control. We're not ready to take the sustenance directly from Hashem, because we're like we're being cooked in the womb. We're being prepared. So when we're in that state, so we're dependent on the other things.
That's a contradiction.
Why?
It says that Yosef is still feeding the Jewish people.
Okay.
Sustenance comes
No, but
from
then it
Yosef.
stopped. He died.
Oh, until now.
They said, okay, what we mean is in principle, not the...
First temple period, same thing, or no?
So in the first temple period, they were completely in a state of maturity, and then they
Yes.
lost it.
Okay, so they were at that level
Right.
at one point. Okay.
Why did they lose it? So one way of looking at it is that they fell, that they did terrible things, and because of that they lost it. The other understanding is that it's a continuous process of growth. That every time, this is what the Arizal calls katnut rishon, katnut sheni. First you have one state of immaturity, and then you grow up, and you have a second state of immaturity. So in a regular person's life, you see this twice.
Second adolescence.
Right.
Yes.
When do you see this? The first time is when you're really a child.
Yes.
And then you grow up, you become an adolescent, and you reach age 20, and you look like an adult.
Yes.
But then you get married.
Yes.
And when you get married, you go back into the womb again.
Yeah, we're back in the second level.
Because you have to relearn everything in a completely different state. Now, that continues in life. In fact, a person who doesn't go through this every few years, they're not growing.
So I'm normal.
So we're all normal. But you have to go through this because that's how you mature. It's like you keep going back to becoming a caterpillar and setting up another pupae, whatever it's called.
So the idea of maturity by the
No, maturity is relative.
It's relative. Okay, fine.
Relative to where I
Relative
was
where you
before,
are, yeah.
I'm mature now, but I'm not mature relative to what I'll be in the age 70. What?
You leave my relatives out.
But it's hopefully a linear, not linear. It's
No,
hopefully
it's a spiral.
It's an up.
It's upward, yeah. It's supposed to be upward. The terrible thing is that a person becomes mature at age 20, 25.
Yes.
They never get married. And then they stay that type of maturity, which is terrible.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They never develop
They never
further.
develop past it. Yeah.
You have to have children to go
Yes.
back into and to relearn how to become mature again.
We have to have
But it's a
children
whole different level.
to be a judge, don't we?
And to daven, to pray for other people. And so
Right.
on.
Right.
Okay. So Baruch Hashem, we started chapter 2.